Hello guys, Omni here. We got some news I wanted to talk about that we haven't got to catch up on. We got some new Mortal Kombat castings. We got some casting announcements for James Gunn's Suicide Squad movie that actually has me pretty excited for it, as well as Pedro Pascal opening up about what makes his Mandalorian different from the one we fell in love with in the beginning, Boba Fett. We're going to start off with the updates to the Mortal Kombat cast. Since we last covered this, we've got our Shang Tsung, we've got our Scorpion, we've also have our Kano and Sonya Blade added to the list, as well as one undisclosed actor. Not actor, we got the actor, we don't know the role that he's playing. But we have Shang Tsung as being played by Chin Han. Most notably, I think you'll most recognize him from The Dark Knight. He was the accounts manager that Batman has to go to China to apprehend from that sequence there. Scorpion is being played by Hiroyuki Sanada, who is best known for Lost Westworld, and he made his most recent appearance now in Avengers Endgame. He was the Yakuza member that Hawkeye slays in Japan in the first half of the film. For me, the most notable role of his that comes to mind is when he played Ujio in The Last Samurai with Tom Cruise. He was the samurai that instructed Tom Cruise's character on how to wield the blade. Um, then Arcano is played by Josh Lawson, and I say Josh Lawson. I'm sorry about that. Sonya Blade is being played by Jessica McNamee, and she's most recently been in The Meg, and she doesn't have nearly as many credits as some of the other people on this. Definitely more than Melina, being her CC Stringer's first film credit that she'll be having. So we got a little bit to look forward there. As far as she goes for Sonya, I think as far as the castings that they've announced so far, there's a couple of concerns that I know a lot of people have raised, both with me and that I've had myself as well, is that there is between Hiroyuki Sanada as Scorpion and Joe Taslim, who's playing Sub-Zero, there's quite a bit of an age gap there when they're supposed to have that primary rivalry, because it is at least being rumored or confirmed, not really confirmed, rumored and assumed at this point that the Joe Taslim character will be playing the Bihan version of Sub-Zero. So the initial one, the one that dies in the first Mortal Kombat, to later come back as Noob Sabat. So that is something interesting to look into there. It's a little weird. It's a little odd unless, but of course, Scorpion will mostly be behind his mask and mostly be, his Spectre form. I would assume the undead version of him, which we most notably know him as, since this is a reboot. So we'll be jumping right into that. Not really. I don't really see us jumping into his resurrection and redemption arc. Josh Lawson is Kano. Yeah, I think he looks great. It looks definitely can make him look the part. He is Australian, so that plays into the character enough that we'll have the accent. Hopefully, he can play up that ruthless, kind of snarky kind of character that Kano is, that we know and love. Jessica Manami, I think the only issue that I draw with that, she hasn't done a lot of action, and I think that's something that I think will need to kind of be touched upon, especially with a movie like this and with a character like Sonya Blade. I would like to have somebody who at least has some familiarity with the hand-to-hand combat and all of that. I do think she does have like a softer appearance to her than Sonya Blade that we know from the video games, at least from the later series. She did look kind of in the beginning. She did have like kind of a like an 80s workout video kind of look going on for her, but hopefully we'll see how this all goes. And we also have Louis Tan, who's best known recently. He's appeared in Deadpool 2, but more recently than that, he has been in Netflix's Wu Assassins, is in talk to play an undisclosed role. From what I've been hearing, nothing's confirmed, but what I've heard is that he might be playing the younger version of Scorpion, so maybe we'll get a glimpse into that, or he'll just be somebody else. Just kind of playing off the role. I was like, maybe he could even be Kung Lao, would be an interesting choice to have him come in there and be kind of a companion character to Ludi Lin's Liu Kang. I'm really interested to see where this movie goes. They're definitely filling out the cast, getting a lot of those core characters, and some people that, again, being a reboot, necessarily didn't have a primary function in the initial story of the games. So I'm curious to see how they incorporate characters like Melina, Jax, and Kano into that and build that out. Of course, they were there in the backgrounds, but they were never really in the forefront. So I'm curious to see how that's all going to pan out. Now, we haven't talked about James Gunn's Suicide Squad all that much here, except for my rants on the fact that it will potentially mess with the continuity of the DC universe. So at this point, I just have to let go of that nitpicking part of my brain that's like, this has to all add up and make sense, since this is a reboot of Suicide Squad. This is not supposed to be, at least what James Gunn has said, that this is a reboot. It is not a sequel to the original Suicide Squad. It's going to be its own thing, but they're still using some of the same actors and actresses from the first film, so that raises some, for me personally, some continuity problems. At least I'm curious to see how they wrap that up. Up until now, we know Margot Robbie's returning as Harley Quinn, Viola Davis will be back as Amanda Waller, Joel Kinnaman as Rick Flag, and Jai Courtney is also returning as Captain Boomerang. We know that joining the cast, new people joining the cast, we've got Steve Agee, who will be voicing King Shark, and the CW, the Flash series, did a really good job at bringing it into life, a really fantastic King Shark. So I'm really curious to see and excited to see how they do this in the big budget format, and I hope it looks better than the CW one, because I think the one on CW looks pretty fantastic. I mean, it does definitely look like it is some TV quality at some times, but for what they do on the show, it looks really great for what they have to work with, and I really like that. David Dastmalchian is confirmed to be playing Polka Dot Man, and then we have Daniela Melchior as Ratcatcher, and Idris Elba, Falula Borg, Nathan Fillion, and Taika Waititi, who are all signed on for undisclosed, unconfirmed roles in the film. As far as who they might play, I honestly don't know. I know there was a lot of rumors and talks in the beginning that Idris Elba was going to be replacing Will Smith as Deadshot, but he has later come out and confirmed that that's not the case. He's going to be playing a new character. But as far as recent news, the ones that got me really excited, I'm going to go ahead and throw out the one that's more recent than the one that actually I'm looking forward to quite a bit. Pete Davidson is in talks for a cameo role that he's going to be shooting in the movie. He is he's best known currently from Saturday Night Live, but apparently he's in talks to make an appearance in the movie. But the one that really has me hyped, if you've been following the channel for a while, or at least for some time, I love Doctor Who, and I think one of the doctors, the actors they kind of got the short end of the stick in a way, not quite as much as Christopher Eccleston did. That's a whole other story. But as far as the more recent doctors, I think Peter Capaldi is very underrated for his performance as the Doctor. And he is in talks currently to join the project as another undisclosed role and in joining the Suicide Squad film. And I don't know to what capacity or who he would play. I do have some ideas of some characters, if it's not like a voice, because more recently, for me, the last thing I saw that he was involved in, at least on the big screen, he was in the Christopher Robin film voicing Rabbit. And, I think he's a fantastic actor. He is magnificent. Like, he pulls all the heartstrings in Doctor Who. And I think the only thing that hurt him in that is the writing. I don't think the stories necessarily allowed for him to do a whole lot, but what he had to work with, he did fantastic. And I think he's one of the most underrated doctors that is out there. He gives amazing emotional performances, and he's such a strong, stern, commanding force when he's on screen, that it's just very, very unparalleled, in my opinion, across the board with like these type of strong actors. Though I'm not sure who he would play. I was just looking through the alumni lists of past and current Suicide Squad members, And just kind of picking through them, I'm not too sure necessarily. These are just some ideas thrown out there that who he may be possible that I think he could pull off well as playing. We of course have the Thinker, Clifford DeVoe. We saw him most recently in The Flash in season 4 of The Flash. He was the primary villain of that season. Um, he's super smart. He can predict pretty much any outcome of anything going on. He's just this hyper intelligent, very stern, science based, knowledge based, logic based, planning forward kind of character, which I think would fit in well with the type of character and personality that Peter Capaldi can bring to the forefront. Another one would possibly be Count Vertigo, who his primary ability, he can influence your center of gravity, your center of balance, give you that initial feeling of vertigo so that you get that feeling like you're 1,000 miles in the sky and you're tipping forward, you're losing your balance. And it's definitely an odd kind of power, but he is kind of a commanding type character. And I think that'd be an interesting one to see as well. Another one that I think would really work into, especially for at least for how Peter Capaldi has played roles in the floor before, would be Clock King, who is much like the Thinker, more very methodical, all about doing things in a masterful, timed kind of manner, getting their plans plotted out and executed down to the millisecond. And if we got this working in with a team unit, I think having a character like Clock King would factor in very well. Now, if we're talking people that aren't members of the Suicide Squad, and this is quite a stretch, that the first person that actually comes to mind for me when Peter Capaldi came to mind, and I was just like, not just Suicide Squad, but who in the DC universe as a whole do I think he could play very well? That isn't Alfred. Just talking about, aged protagonists in the series. And for me, the most notable one, and it may even be a voice, he could be the man behind the mask even, but that would be like Dr. Fate. I think that would be a very interesting character to bring in. I don't know how you'd bring a character into this world like that, because he's so overpowered, and I don't know what that would contribute. Playing the voice of Nobu, the spirit that possesses Dr. Fate's mask. I don't know. It's just completely off the wall. It definitely doesn't fit into what the Suicide Squad is or would be about, because if he showed up, he'd just be able to, whatever problem they were facing in that moment, he would just be able to, like, it's done, because he is essentially the Doctor Strange of the DC universe, and in many ways, I believe, even more powerful than Doctor Strange. It's a very close lineup there, and but that's the kind of character he would be, and it's definitely a strange pull for that, and it's just an unlikely one. I don't think that's going to be the case at all, but that was just me pulling at the strings there. Now we're going to go ahead and jump away from that and talk about Pedro Pascal, opening up about the Mandalorian and what makes him different. We got some recent exclusive shots from Entertainment Weekly showing him in full gear fighting some Trandoshan's, so that's really cool to see. We're going to finally see some action involving Trandoshan's in the current live action Star Wars mythology, so that's going to be really cool. But their initial, he starts talking about the Mandalorian character which he will play, and he does actually in this interview does talk about how the character himself does have a real name, which will be revealed in the series. Honestly, I would personally like to not see him ever take off the mask. I would like for him to never reveal his name, but if they go that route and really try to flesh out this character, that'll be pretty interesting to see how they do it. The way he describes him as more of a dark hero. Ultimately, he wants to do the right thing, but his duties could very much be in conflict with his destiny, and doing the right thing has many faces. It can be very windy road. Sorry, I read that wrong. Could be a very windy road. Series creator Jon Favreau goes on to talk about this, and it was like, our guy is a Mandalorian. We definitely explore the culture of the Mandalorians. The show will be exploring more the culture of the Mandalorians. And when he talks about that our character is a Mandalorian, they kind of clarify that. Dave Filoni goes on to add about that. by clarifying what they mean, because a lot of people do consider Boba Fett a Mandalorian. Even myself, up until this point, at least based on their description of what a Mandalorian is, I would consider him a Mandalorian. But they are kind of redefining that. Dave Filoni adds, who is kind of the godfather of the Star Wars collective canon universe at this point, with George Lucas having exited the scene and passing things on. He's the person that's been helming Rebels. He's the person that has helmed the Clone Wars animated series. And this is his first live action venture going into the Star Wars universe, partnered up with series creator Jon Favreau, which will be really interesting to see how that pulls off, because I love Dave Filoni and I love his passion for Star Wars, and I trust the man to do well by the canon. But he goes on to talk about how Boba Fett is a clone, according to Attack of the Clones, and by asking George Lucas, he would say Boba Fett is not a Mandalorian. He is not born on the planet Mandalore. I'm paraphrasing a little bit there. He's more of a person indoctrinated into it. Jango Fett being a pure Mandalorian, as far as we know about the character. But Boba himself is a clone of Jango, a child uninhibited by the enhancements that the later clone soldiers had that made them grow faster, made them more skilled. He is a pure-born human clone of Jango, making him not Mandalorian born. So I kind of get the point they're kind of coming across there. But it's they go back on to say he's indoctrinated into it, into the way of life, and gets a hold of Mandalorian armor. Our guy is operating in a much more unforgiving landscape, a place where survival is difficult enough, and let alone flourishing in that atmosphere and the politics that have dissolved. It is might is right in this world, and how does somebody earn a living when there's no structure to society anymore and everything is collapsing in on itself? How do you work your way through the world? So it's going to be a really rough and tumble world. We're going to see how the statute of government has fallen apart. Even though we know that this will be taking place, a lot of this will be in the Outer Rims, but even the Outer Rims, in a lot of ways, were still controlled by the Republic. Having the Empire fall and having the control of the Republic, a galactic empire, falling apart, there is no statute of government in a lot of these places. Even some of the ones that didn't in the first place, a lot of these crime syndicates, a lot of these outside forces are going to be vying for power in a lot of these systems. And that's going to be really cool to see how they operate and tackle that. I'm really curious to see that, because we haven't seen that kind of touched upon, especially in the current Star Wars canon. Jon Favreau does go on to talk about how this is going to explore the darker, freakier side of Star Wars. I'm trying to evoke the aesthetic of not just the original trilogy, but the first film. And not just the first film, but the first act of the film. What was it like on Tatooine? What was going on in that cantina? That has fascinated me since I was a child. I love the idea of darker, freakier side of Star Wars and the Mad Max aspect to it. Now, all of that is just getting me more excited for this. I do know I know some people probably will take a little bit of an issue with them just straight up not calling Boba Fett a Mandalorian, but I kind of get what they're going at by the clear-cut definition of a Mandalorian. He isn't one. Mandalorians, for the most part, are born on Mandalore. They are purebloods. There are people that are indoctrinated into it, but at least by their definition, he's not a pure Mandalorian. So I'm curious to see what you guys think about that. But I do love how they talk about this show. I love how it's going to be this. It's going to be this side of the Star Wars universe that we don't see that often. We saw a little bit of it in Rogue One, with the side of Star Wars that it doesn't directly involve the Force, that doesn't directly involve Jedi, Sith, this existential conflict between good and evil. We're going to really see the gray area, the parts of the universe that is really just full of scum, villainy, people struggling to survive, people that don't have the privilege of being gifted by the Force to help them enhance their abilities, to help them influence their luck, to influence others, to influence their own perceptions, abilities, physicality. This is people that do not have that luxury in their lives, who have to struggle with the outcomes of the people that have those powers and are wielding those powers to influence the greater machinations of this universe, and how those consequences flow out into the other parts of the system, and see how that affects the people on the planets, the people that are living their lives and how this affects their societies, their governments, the way they live their lives, the economy, and just seeing how people survive, fight. Like it says, to survive in this world, it is might is right. So you have to be able to put up a fight. You have to be able to be strong enough to carry yourself forward and make your way in this rough and tumble, lawless kind of world. It's very much a Western Star Wars, and I'm really excited for this show. I'm really hyped up for this. I'm way more excited for this, honestly, than I am for episode 9. And more so than this, I'm really excited for Obi-Wan because I think that's going to be kind of a blend of this and what we've known Star Wars to be up until this point. Because if it is, in fact, the part where Obi-Wan's in hiding, I feel like there's definitely going to be a lot less force, a lot less lightsabering than we've seen with a Jedi before. And I think it's going to be a much more covert kind of way of him kind of keeping himself on the down low while maintaining his mission, protecting Luke. Anyway, this video has gone on long enough, guys. I'm sorry about the rant. I hope you're still here. But I want to know your thoughts on everything we've talked about today. I want you to sound off in the comments and give me your feelings, your opinions on the casting announcements for Mortal Kombat, the casting announcements for James Gunn's Suicide Squad, and the kind of new, or not really new, but I would say clarifying information that they've come out about between Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and Pedro Pascal about what makes this Mandalorian different from the ones we know from the original trilogy, Boba Fett. What do you think about the way they're tackling this world, this side of Star Wars that they're trying to show us? Let's sound off in the comments, carry on this conversation after the video, and thank you guys for hanging out. I hope you liked this video, and if you want to support the channel, please like, comment, and subscribe. Ring the bell if you want to stay up to date with any of my other videos. If you didn't like it, if you disagree with me on any of my comments in this video, sound off in the comments and let me know. I love to know what you guys think, even if you disagree with me. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you all for hanging out. Thank you guys for stopping in. Thank you if you are still listening to me prattle on about stuff, and then in the end doesn't really matter, but it makes my heart warm with joy, and I hope it does the same for you guys as well. Thank you all for stopping in. I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.